Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate Santana. I'm a wife and a mom of 2-year-old Olivia Joy, and I'm 13 weeks pregnant. So you may notice that I'm wearing the same outfit as the last video, but I'm taping 2 videos in one day to try to get it all done while I can. So today's video, I want to talk about how we've been using Montessori to foster independent play in our 2-year-old. And I'm not gonna lie, this is something that is definitely difficult to do, but there are some guidelines, there are some, I guess, tracks that you can lay down that a train can run more smoothly over. So I'm gonna talk today about what are those important tracks that you can lay down so that your child's independent play can run as smoothly as possible. Of course, they're still a child and they're still gonna need you, and I still play with my daughter a lot, but I am noticing a difference when I lay down these tracks and how long she's able to independently play, and so much so that I wanted to make a video because I'd love to share these things that other mamas have shared with me or that I have found through YouTube that have just been so helpful that I'd love to share with you guys as well. So the first thing that Montessori talks about, and that is super important, and I've talked about in a video before, is do not interrupt your child. Do not interrupt them when they are playing. Do not say good job. Do not make loud noises around the house. Like, if you have to, I understand. My child's just not used to loud noises, so that would interrupt her. Maybe your child is used to a noisy home if they're not the first child. I do not interrupt her when she is playing. If you want them to be independent, I know it seems self-explanatory, but try to catch yourself on how many times you interrupt them by saying something to them, whether it's good or whether you think you're giving them constructive feedback on something. It's definitely detrimental to them fostering independent play if you interrupt them. This also requires, to back up for a second, that you have a yes space where your child is playing. What I mean by a yes space is that it is child-proof to the extent that they cannot get into trouble in that place or get into trouble easily. So everything that they have access to, they are allowed to have access to. So you've either locked the doors or you've just simply moved things out of the doors or the drawers that you don't want them to get into. So make sure that they're playing in a space where you're not gonna have to constantly say, oh, that's dangerous. Oh no, don't touch that, because you're gonna interrupt their flow if you do that. So number one, do not interrupt them when they are having moments of independent play. Second, to go along with that, do not rush them to finish something. So this is so hard because I get bored so much faster than my child does. I think of this a lot of times when we're outside and she wants to play, but I want to like keep walking or whatever. Like today, we went on a walk and she was just kind of like dilly-dallying on the sidewalk, and I wanted to be like, let's go, I want to go back home, but I was like, Kate, let her, like, what are you gonna do at home? Like, just let her play for a second. And she was like pushing her car and doing sorts of things on her own independently. She wasn't needing me in that moment. Let them play, don't rush them to finish. Or if it's bath time and they're playing independently, push back bath time by 5 or 10 minutes. Push back lunchtime by 5 or 10 minutes. It's so easy for us to be like on a schedule and think like, okay, we need to move on to the next activity. But if they're playing independently, do not move them on. This is actually harder than you would think, and we probably stop our kids short on certain things or rush them to finish something that they are actually engaged in more often than we know if we start to consciously think about it. The next is, do not overteach your child when you present them with a new toy or just when they're playing with toys in general. I noticed, so my daughter is recently obsessed with this toy that she got when she's 1 year old. It's by Plan Toys. I'll try to put a picture of it right here, and I will put a link down below. It's a wooden toy. It has a little wooden knife, and it's the 2 pieces of food, like fruit or vegetables, are velcroed together, and you cut it open. She will now play with this for an hour at a time, which for a 2-year-old, honestly, it's a really long time. She will just sit there and do this, like cut the fruit open over and over and over again. But this did not happen when she first got this toy, because I tried to overteach her, like, oh, hold the knife this way, okay, do this, oh, try, you know, and I just wanted her to get it, and it frustrated her. If she couldn't get the knife through the first time, it was like she would scream, and it was my fault. because I tried to teach her how to do it and not just let her play with it and discover it on her own. Now I never instruct her on what to do. If she holds the knife upside down or the wrong way, I don't tell her. I just let her struggle with it. And guess what? She struggles with it for so long, and she doesn't cry and she doesn't scream and she doesn't throw the knife and she doesn't get upset. She just continues to struggle to move it a different way, to hold it a different way. And then if she can't get it, she just opens it with her fingers. No crying. And it's because I didn't make it so that like you have to do it this certain way or you failed, right? Like she just loves this toy, and I didn't overteach it and take the fun out of it for her. So try as best as you can when you introduce new toys. You can show them like how it works, but don't overteach and don't teach too much at all, so that they can just use the toy in whatever way they want to, and they will feel successful when they feel successful, and you don't have to be like, yes, yes, yes. So along with over teaching, don't like over cheer for them when they get something right, quote unquote. There's no right or wrong way to play with a toy, especially if you have the right kinds of toys, which I will talk about in a moment. So do not be like over teacher mom. It helps with independent play a lot. Kind of going along with over teaching, and I know I've said this, it's getting redundant at this point, but don't say much at all. Don't cheer for them. Don't be like, oh, good job, you did it. If you really have to say something, I would use what they call like a sportscaster, where you're basically just saying what you see. Wow, I see that you cut the apple in two, or something like that. You're just stating what they just did, or wow, you made a tower. And that's it. Next, and I kind of touched on this, but open-ended toys are so important if you want your child to play independently. Battery-operated toys are not great for independent play. They're going to get old really fast. There's only one way to play with them. You push the button and that's kind of it. So toys that I suggest are like a Grimm's Rainbow. We have a lot of wooden toys like the knife toy cutting the fruit. We have blocks, lots of blocks, balls, books, beads. She uses her beads in so many different ways. Instruments. We have Montessori like realistic animal figurines that she loves to play with in conjunction with her Grimm's Rainbow. All of those things that are just toys that the child can be creative with. I'll link a bunch of them down below if you're interested in buying any of these. They're super important for independent play because the child can use them in a bunch of different ways. There isn't one right way to use it, and then it's kind of useless after that. So you want toys that can be played with in many different ways to foster that independent play. Along with this, you want a toddler-sized table and chair so that they can do craft or sensory type activities without you. This is a huge way that you can increase independent play. Olivia loves kinetic sand. I just put her at the table, put the sand there. Don't say much to her. Don't tell her how she should play with the sand, and just let her play with it, which I will link down below as well. Markers and paper, super great for independent play. She loves just, if I put a little bit of music on and she has her markers and her paper, she will play for a long time at the table by herself. So things that she can just be creative with. Definitely a table and chair with some sensory stuff and some arts and crafts stuff is really great for independent play as well. I'm kind of getting close to the end here, but these are all really important for, again, just laying those rails for the independent play to run smoothly over, and that is let the child take the lead. If your child has no independent play right now, which I highly doubt, it's not possible for them to never play independently, but let's just say they don't and they still need you. When you are playing with them, let them take the lead. Try not to say, oh, let's play with this now. Oh, let's do this way. You can take out a toy for them. Like sometimes I choose a toy, like let's get the blocks out, right? And we get the blocks out, but then once I get them, I'll let her pour them out. I let her decide once they're on the floor, what are we gonna do with them? And I take the back seat. Do not try to drive the play so that you get to decide how your child plays and in what manner they're playing or what they want to do. Just present the raw materials to them, and then you can kind of take a back seat. If they're getting frustrated or they don't know what to do, sometimes I just start playing. I start building a tower and she looks at me and she's like, okay, maybe I'll do that too. So you can do the least invasive thing to kind of encourage them in their play, but they should really be the one taking the lead and playing with whatever toy you guys are playing with at the moment. Don't be the leader, because then they're going to be able to replicate that on their own. Another thing is that I have open shelving in our playroom, and at this point Olivia knows she can go to a shelf, she can just grab a toy and bring it to the middle of the floor and start playing with it. In the beginning though, I had to encourage her to do that. So if we're sitting on the floor together, I would point to one of the open shelves and say, like, go get your puzzle, or why don't you go get your beads? And then she would go get it. But now if I'm in the kitchen cooking and I come back, I'm like, oh, she got her beads out, right? Like, she goes over to the shelves herself and knows to get the toys out. I don't suggest a toy box. Going over to open shelving is so much easier for your child to see what they want to do, to bring it to the floor and to start playing without you even needing to be in the room or needing to initiate the play at all. The last thing is just to get your child used to alone time. I think it's really important to give them alone time in the crib when they are awake. So meaning, and man, this is something you kind of have to start early, but putting them down when they are still awake, not putting them down and expecting them to fall asleep that very second. So if your child, you know, falls asleep at 8 o'clock, try to put them in their crib at 7:30. To be honest, I would say Olivia is awake usually in her crib from about 30 minutes to an hour before she falls asleep at night. And it just gives her time. She has one little toy in there to play, to think to herself, to be alone, and to be okay with being alone. On the flip side of that, when she wakes up, as long as she's not like screaming, crying, we let her in there to just kind of play, talk, sing, roll around, wake up, be alone for a few minutes to get used to being independent. So I highly suggest you build in independent crib time. So that is it for my tips on fostering independent play. I've definitely found some great videos on YouTube, so I'm sure you can continue searching this subject and finding a few other things you can do to lay down the rails for some great independent play. But if you have any other suggestions that you've heard or that have worked for you, please go ahead and throw them in the comments down below. If this video is helpful, please share it, please like it, and please subscribe to my channel. It helps me so much to grow. If you'd like to see daily Olivia, I'd love for you to follow me over on Instagram at Sweet Home Sans Hannah. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.